Hello everyone. I the next video of Therapy Thursday will actually be a serious video, but for now, this is gonna be the first half of what the Therapy Thursday is actually gonna be talking about. Because I've been reading this book called The Anxious Generation, and I have my own personal opinions on this matter that I'm reading on. It's important for my English class, so I've been reading this, and I'm only read the first half right now. But I'll read the second half next week, and then I'll give my full opinion on everything, with it being a little bit of a cool video. Just a tiny bit though. But for now, welcome to Therapy Thursday, and I got school in um, 9 hours, but um, I got school in 9 hours, but let's get this done. So just know I am not a professional. I'm just a high school student, senior, and if you're older than me, you know what's right, you know what's wrong, and if you are younger than me, don't take my advice too seriously. I haven't grown up. I'm barely older than you. So, take my words very, very lightly. Um, the anxious generation, the whole thing is talking about how technology is like completely ruining this generation. Do I actually think that's true? Kind of, but mostly, in my opinion, as I'm a person living in it and I'm going through it, the data doesn't help it, right? I'm gonna say right now, the data does not support anything with technology being helpful for this generation. And I mean, it makes sense. Okay, one of the things that he said is that there's a thing called defense mode and there's a thing called learning mode. In defense mode is because, you haven't gone outside enough, and it's because you're always in this fear. He was kind of correlating it to when you're riding a bike and you're scared of the first time falling, but after that, you enter into learning mode and you learn how to bike faster, how to move your wheels faster, do these cool turns, or maybe skateboarding, and you do cool tricks and steeper ramps and that kind of stuff. And that's true. Someone that's indoors is a lot and playing video games, they don't quite they get the learning aspect part, and they get the same process of like, oh, we're going to try my limits on this thing, but they don't actually do it in real life, right? It's a lot different in my opinion, it's like just a different version of the stimulus, but it's not triggering the correct stimulus, you know? Um, I guess it's more like a drug, but that's what one of the things that they're saying, which is preventing younger audiences in my generation to be, less intelligent, um, not being able to come up with the new ideas and that kind of stuff, and not being able to make it. And then it doesn't help as well that depression has like absolutely skyrocketed. And the best assumption is that, I mean, the data proves it, that depression has gotten higher because of social media, because they're mentioning how it's like a lot more tied to looks and that kind of stuff, and that's all whatever. you know, I'm gonna finish this book before I give off my full opinions on this book. So far, I think a lot of it is correct, and I can't disprove any of it because they have actual data that I can't say. But data doesn't really tell the whole story. Everyone is human at the end of the day, right? Like humans, if you're older, my best example is like if you watch basketball when you're older, right? Everyone in the 1980s says that this basketball was perfect. 1990 basketball was perfect. Okay? 2000 basketball, perfect as well, right? Um, but the data doesn't show that. I mean, the data does show that because the ratings were higher, but the viewership was less. And that's just, I mean, sure, there's more population. That's what the biggest argument is. But at the end of the day, um, the sport got more popular, and more people are willing to watch the sport, right? And more people outside of America is willing to watch the sport. So clearly, the data doesn't back up that the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s was the best NBA to watch, right? I mean, sure, ratings, people care about ratings, but, whatever. But anyways, the data doesn't prove everything, right? Everyone can admit data doesn't prove everything, because you have to kind of live through it for me to say, I think, if anything, depression is just way more spottable nowadays. And more people are, like, I guess more and more people are becoming depressed because more and more people are more like attuned to their emotions. Um, one thing I will say is that I definitely do agree that the problem with the internet nowadays, one thing that's a problem, is that people keep diagnosing themselves with depression or anxiety or all these things that they don't actually know about. And they kind of just say that they have it even though they have it, they don't have all like the information, you know? I definitely agree with that because, gosh, how many times have I genuinely felt so sad? Like, obviously, every kid goes through days where they're incredibly sad, but would I ever say I was depressed during those days? No, I wouldn't. But to what I've heard of other people, they're like referencing similar stories and they said that they were depressed. So it's like, I mean, every human is different, so maybe that is depression for them, but not depression for me, right? At the same time, it's like because of my stance of where I know my experiences, I'm just assuming, like, I don't think that's depression, but you know, that's my personal opinion. They're a whole completely different human. They could be depressed actually, and that's completely my fault for mistaking them. But I at least will take the possibility that they could actually be depressed, right? So at least give myself a little bit of credit. Um, and I definitely do agree with that because that makes sense. I'm not gonna lie. I think everyone just be doing that now because everyone, even adults, are like kind of like just talking about like more things about themselves that they didn't know. Like my dad be talking about like more whatever it is having to do with mortgage or that kind of stuff. There's just more data out there. There's more data. Like, you can do a lot more things nowadays. So yeah, but I don't think technology is completely ruining my generation. I think it does a pretty good amount of good. People just don't, and it's not just my generation. Like technology, sure, it affects my generation the most because my generation, like, literally, like, was in the middle of it growing, and then to its current extent. But like at the same time, what about the previous generations? Like millennials and Gen X and Gen like don't those generations absolutely benefited from technology as well, like insane. Like sure, I mean my generation not been doing so great according to the data, but like every other generation doing great with technology, you know. So I don't think we should be like, oh, technology is bad, like, or like technology is like not good for little kids because obviously these people were able to do so much good with it just because we're in this era where like, you know, we need to see what it's like to see a kid grow from having decent amount of technology for the whole entire life. We need to see how that turns out, right? So that's why people were saying, oh, don't, you shouldn't have a phone until you're 18 or 17. I didn't have a phone until I was 16, but I'll tell you what, I don't think it changed. Like, I think I would have been the same person even if I did have a phone, like 4 years ago. But you know, so that's my personal take on it because the data says this, like, oh, don't have a phone until you're 16 or 17 or 18. I'm like, yeah, I didn't do that, and guess what? I don't think I would have been different if I had a phone since I was 12. If any, because like if anything, me not having a phone this late was kind of bad. I don't use my phone that much, so maybe people can deem that as good because like, you know, people have a lot of screen time on their phone, but at some point you got to consider that like how many connections have I lost that I could have grown better, and like actual work connections like, hey guys, theater people, can I get your help with this thing, or like, hey, can people get you to things, like I can't contact them. What am I meant to do? I'm a film major trying to like get connections. That's like the most important thing with my career path. And because I don't have a phone now, I can't do that. Like that's kind of limiting, right? I feel like for some people, I don't know if the data would back up that those people would always quote like, oh, it's just better to not have a phone when you're 16. Like that's like limiting a whole art, right? So, you know, that's my personal opinion. That I don't think technology is actually that bad. I think there's a lot of good with technology. It helps. It brings in a lot more communities together. Like online friends, I don't have any, but anyone that does, they could probably say that their life's gone significantly better for having those people, right? Or having any connections with anyone that had online partners and they're long distance. Like, you know, those are some pretty good stories as well. And I think, I mean, we'd be hearing only the sad ones, so it's kind of bad, right? But, you know, I think this article that this book I'm reading is very database, and I think a lot of it is correct because the data just proves it, and also so I can't like debunk it or anything. Um, but I do think that there's just not enough time in our generation, to prove if it's right or wrong yet. Because all the other generations, yeah, they've no wonder they've done so great with it, because like they were old enough to understand technology to then grow it to then do whatever. And with the first generation to be like they were like how I describe it, like they were born with no technology and then they all had it. Right? No, we haven't seen a generation born with no tech with technology and then use it, like, or the internet, like, and then use it for a whole, whatever. I mean, millennials were like that, so I don't know why they think Gen Z is so bad. Think about it. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this Therapy Thursday. It's kind of more like a book review, but Therapy Thursday. Um, yeah. And I'll see y'all in a week.